Don't tell me you didn't let anyone in here while I was out. I can tell you let that filthy beatnik in here. How do I know? Because all my dresses smell like patchouli. Yes. Doesn't use deodorant, does she? Yeah, you take all my dresses and you take them down to the river Styx and you wash that stink out of them. And then I'm going to beat you like a carpet for letting that damned hippie in here in the first place. Hello. Hello. Didn't see you there. So we're here. We're here. Yeah, I have another play. Yes, I've been topside bringing spring, and this is a play that really goes with that because it's all. I'll explain later. But in the meantime, book. You know the drill. Book. Also, as like my great Richard III, to paraphrase him, unlike when Buckingham did not kill those bastard children like he should have, and Richard said, I am not in the giving vein today. Well, I've been having a lovely time up topside for spring, and I am in the giving vein today. So, if you would like one of 3 copies, only 3, of this book that I am giving away, come across to the Black Cockie Press Instagram, and I will give you the special code word at some point during the video to win a signed copy of this book. Yeah, see, I had a very good play for you. It's one that I had no idea what it was like. I mean, it's one I didn't know anything about it. It's a bit of an odd play. It's called As You Like It. As You Like It. And it's a bit of an odd play. It's one that I think has fallen a bit out of fashion because the Milwaukee Family Players said that they used to perform it a lot, but then they stopped. But frankly, I think that could have something to do with the Milwaukee Family Players' execution of the play, because I think it's supposed to be like a nice light souffle, and what they produce are brownies because they overwork it. At least they're chocolate brownies, but if done badly, it comes off as an overworked souffle. So it's a little bit difficult to find a really good production. Not that I'll ever see a really good production. Milwaukee Family Players, they murder things. But even with that, you can still see there is a good play underneath them. So that's what we're doing today. So, As You Like It. This is an odd play because the first act has like all the plot points, and then there's sort of like nothing plot-wise for about 4 acts. So it's a little bit of an odd play in that regard, because there's and most of the plot points are a bit of a MacGuffin anyway. They're just to get everyone into the forest. So if this is a little bit light on plot, it's not my fault. It's the play itself. So we start out with Orlando Du Bois and Oliver Du Bois, and their father, Roland Du Bois, has died, and Orlando is complaining that he's the younger son, is complaining that his elder brother is doing nothing for him. He is treating him like cattle. He is doing absolutely nothing. He's not providing him with an education or any way to improve himself. He is basically just being treated like chattel. And he confronts his brother with like this, and they fight physically. And Oliver refuses to give him the money that he's supposed to get in the will, or to send him to school or anything else, because he's about 17. He's a very young man. And Orlando is. His brother is a little older. And Orlando is put out by this, but he doesn't really have any recourse. Then next we see is the Duke Fredericks court. And in the Duke Fredericks court, there is his daughter, Celia, and his niece, Rosalind. Rosalind is the daughter of his brother, Duke Senior, who he has got rid of, he has banished, and Rosalind is only allowed to stay in the court because his own daughter, Celia, is very attached to her and would die or run away or whatever if Rosalind were banished. So something has happened between these brothers. We never know what, but the younger brother has banished the elder brother and taken his lands and crown and all. So that's what's happening there. Fredericks Senior also has a wrestler called Charles. And Charles is known to break men. And Oliver has got Orlando signed in to wrestle Charles. And Oliver tells Charles that I wouldn't think very ill if instead of a broken finger, my brother Orlando ended up with a broken neck. Yes, he's a very charming creature, is Oliver. Real snake. And so we then return to the court where the wrestling match is going to happen. Celia and Rosalind are going to watch the wrestling, and they hear that Charles has broken 3 young men who came to challenge him already, and that as Orlando is so very young, that perhaps the ladies would be able to dissuade him from fighting the wrestling match. The ladies are also accompanied by Touchstone, the Duke's jester. Now, he's very, very good, except for the Milwaukee family players. They had a really nice idea of putting Touchstone on a unicycle, which could have been enormous fun, except that the actor who plays Touchstone can neither recite his lines, nor ride a unicycle, nor frankly walk in a straight line most of the time. And so he comes on and then boom, and I like a good pratfall as much as the next person, but it's not so much boom, and that was the joke. It's just over and over and over again, stalling the thing. I have sat through productions of this that last 5 hours long, thanks to this little device of theirs. I really wish they'd lose the unicycle. Anyway, we're still doing the plot-heavy bits. So the young ladies are unable to dissuade Orlando from wrestling, but Rosalind has certainly caught her eye, and she is definitely barracking for him to win the wrestling because he is very charming and pretty. And despite all the odds, Orlando wins the wrestling. He wins. He defeats Charles the wrestler, and Duke Frederick asks him what parentage he is, and he says he is the younger son of Rolando's du Bois, at which Duke Frederick, who is very displeased and would have him be some other man's son, because Rolando du Bois was a great supporter of his elder brother, Duke Senior, who has been banished and sent into exile, along with any other courtiers who were following him. So Duke Frederick is not very happy with this. So even though he has won the wrestling match, Orlando is quite left out of everything. And Rosaline goes over to him to comfort him, and she gives him a necklace that she is wearing, and he is so struck by her that he is unable to speak. Orlando goes back home, and the Duke returns, and he decides, Rosalind, you're banished because you are your father's daughter. No other reason. Celia tries to plead for her and beg mercy, but no, you don't. You're so dim, Celia. You don't see that her goodness puts you in the shade. And so he's a really nasty piece of work, but he is only a MacGuffin. So, we don't see him after this. So Rosalind is banished, and Celia is so upset that she's like, no, I'm going with you. I'm not leaving. My father wants to do this. He can do that all by himself. So they plan to leave, and they're going to take Touchstone with them, which becomes very laborious with the unicycle, I can tell you. Especially since Touchstone is supposed to be like this really quick-witted, and oh my God. When done well, I'm sure it's brilliant, but you have never seen tedium till you have seen an actor try and fail and try and fail and try and fail to get onto a unicycle so that the action can proceed. It would be a good play if it weren't for my players. They're terrible. We haven't even got to the singing bits yet. So Celia and Rosalind decide that they're going to run away to the Forest of Arden, where Duke Senior is, and they're going to take Touchstone with them because they think he's really funny and he'll be fun company to have. So they gather up their gold and their jewels, and in the night they run away, and Duke Frederick is really angry about this. Meanwhile, Orlando goes home and is warned by the servant Adam, the old servant Adam, that his brother intends to kill him because the wrestling match didn't work. And so he also runs away to the Forest of Arden. He takes old Adam, the old servant, with him because he is much keener to spend time with as serving Orlando than serving Oliver. So they run away to the Forest of Arden. Rosalind, who is now calling herself Ganymede, because she's dressed as a boy, because she's a bit tall, and this way that the people, anyone pursuing them, are going to be looking for two girls and a jester, and this way they're two men and a woman, so it is going to put people off their tracks. So she is dressed as a boy called Ganymede, and Celia is dressed as a peasant girl, and she's called Elena. Anyway, and Touchstone is Touchstone. But they come across a shepherd, and they ask him about how what he's doing, and whether who he works for, and he says that this person he works for, minding their sheep, is selling up. And so they say, well, here is a big bag of gold. Go buy your master's house for us. And so they become the shepherd's masters and mistress. So they're a bit like tree changers, going into a rural area and driving up house prices by splashing city money around. Yes, it's not exactly ethical. Not exactly ethical. And this forest is very strange. Not quite as strange as the one in A Midsummer's Night Dream that was all populated with fairies. I still haven't worked out what fairies are yet. I asked Hermes, he didn't know. He didn't know. But this is the Forest of Arden. This isn't a Greek forest. This is an English forest. So I guess they don't have fairies there. I don't think they have fairies in Greek forests. Anyway, Duke Senior is in the forest with his courtiers, and among them is Jacques, who is a very melancholy man and very cynical and very satirical. And so he becomes very infatuated with Touchstone. because he comes in and says, I've seen a fool in the forest, like a proper courty fool in the forest. It's quite bizarre, and he becomes quite obsessed with Touchstone. So Orlando is now in the forest with old Adam, and they're starving, and he comes in on Duke Senior's camp, and he comes in roaring because he thinks everything here is savage, and is met with, oh, it's all quite civilized. Oh, okay, so thank you. I've just got to go get my old servant, and then I'll come back and enjoy some dinner with you. So everyone just about is in the forest. Back in the court, Oliver has been dragged in by Duke Frederick, and he has been told, if you do not find your brother in the next 12 months, I will take your lands and your properties and everything, and you will be banished. Basically, this is how Duke Frederick does things. He just takes people's stuff because he's a spoilt child, clearly. But anyway, so Oliver ends up being thrust out into the forest. Oliver is like, I have no idea where my brother went. And Duke Frederick is, well, he obviously went with my daughter and niece, so you find him and it's your responsibility. And he's like, since when has my brother been my responsibility? Well, since forever, sweetie, but, you know, in this play. But you've been shirking your responsibilities for some time. And now all of a sudden, those pigeons have come back to roost. So everybody who's going to be in the forest is now in the forest. Right. So now I said there's something a bit kooky about this forest. Because, okay, before I came down here and took up the other half of my position, you know, the half of my position that my mother didn't want me to have. My mother's version of the world is Arcadia. And in Arcadia, flowers and fruit are on the trees all the time. Everything is beautiful. It is always sunny. It only ever rains at night, and only then just enough. Everything is perfect in Arcadia. Perfect. Until you see a cow explode. You see, that's the other half of me. Arcadia. No cow pats. It's beautiful, idealized countryside where cows don't poop. You know what happens if cows don't poop? Cows blow up. They blow up like beach balls, and then they're full of methane, and then they float all the way up into the upper atmosphere, and boom! Fiery cow fireworks. That's why I had to come down here. It was murdering cows. Cows, chipmunks, squirrels, you name it. No fundaments. Whole world, no fundaments. The poor little animals can't cope with that. No cow pats, no fertilizer. The poor trees were stressed out of their minds. They couldn't keep going like that. There was nothing in the soil. They'd leached everything out. And my mother, my dreadful mother, didn't see anything wrong with exploding cows or starving trees. So really, it was mercy that drove me down here. Mercy. I really couldn't take any more exploding cows. If anything's going to make you a vegetarian, is watching that many cows explode at random. I'm just saying. But the Forest of Arden seems to be a little bit like this. There is no messiness of rural life. It's an idealized rural life. There is no hard winters, no drenching storms, no wind that knocks down trees and crushes your shepherd hut and you know, drops things on you. You know, all that stuff just doesn't happen. It's this beautiful idyllic paradise. can tell you doesn't exist unless you want exploding cows. So the Forest of Arden is this idyllic paradise, and everyone is quite happy there. Orlando, in his banishment, is occupying himself by writing execrable poetry and sticking it on trees and writing Rosalinda on trees everywhere. Jacques has met up with Touchstone, who he finds very interesting. Touchstone has also met a shepherd who he finds very interesting because he's a shepherd philosopher, or at least that's what Touchstone accuses him of being. And they have a debate about why the shepherd is banned because he has not been to court. Touchstone is very playful language, but it's very hard to catch the playful language when over and over. Touchstone also decides he'd like to get married, and so he meets a goat herd called Audrey and decides that he's going to marry her because he has to see off his opposition first. Orlando meets Ganymede, and because he could not speak to Rosalind, Rosalind doesn't say who she is, but continues to play Ganymede, even though in the forest they're perfectly safe, because Orlando can talk to Ganymede, a young man his own age, and Ganymede promises to cure him of this love. Because if this love is only infatuation, he's no use to Rosalind. And so every day Orlando will come to visit and woo Ganymede in the name of Rosalind. Okay? So there are also a couple of shepherds, a shepherd and a shepherdess, who are in the forest as well. And the shepherd is in love with the shepherdess, but the shepherdess is not in love with the shepherd. And then she sees Ganymede, and even though Ganymede is very, very rude to her, she insists that she is in love with him no matter what he says to be rude. And he can't shake her. He cannot shake her. Even though she said, Ganymede says, you will be really disappointed. Not going to happen. So that is happening. Orlando comes to woo his imaginary Rosalind, and Ganymede takes it all the way to asking Alina, or Celia, because we're just going to go with Celia, to say the words of the hand fasting ceremony with Orlando. And now, this is where this play has to works or doesn't work. At about this point, Orlando should work out that Ganymede is Rosalind, and then all his lines after that should have a tinge of irony in that he knows that who he's talking to now and can suddenly talk to her, and is even more impressed with her and actually properly in love, but she's not ready to drop her disguise. If, however, he persists in his believing that Ganymede is a boy until the very end, the whole joke just doesn't work. There are lines in this play that can be read flat and kind of dull, or can be read with a lot of irony. Guess which one the Milwaukee family players decide to try? Yes. Flat, dull, and Orlando's a dope. It's unfortunate because I think it's a very much more witty play than the Milwaukee family players allow for. So Orlando has more or less figured out that Ganymede is Rosalind. And he promises to return in 2 hours because he has to attend on the Duke, her father, though he doesn't know that that's her father, or, you know, the whole cross purposes. Nobody's letting anyone in on that they know what's going on. Anyway, Orlando fails to return, and in comes Oliver. completely reformed. So obviously they've been in the forest for quite some time, because he tells of being found by Orlando on his way back, on his way to the Duke, asleep with a snake around his neck. And as Orlando's approached, the snake fled but brought out a lion. And Orlando has seen this man all rough and dirty and has been sleeping rough and really, quite miserable. And twice this sleeping man he goes to turn away from, having recognized him as Oliver, and let the lion eat him. Lions in Warwickshire. There are no lions in Warwickshire. There were lions in Greece, but no lions in Warwickshire. But eventually he decides his good nature wins out, and he will not let his brother be eaten, no matter how badly his brother has behaved towards him. And so he fights off the lioness and saves his brother, and they are reconciled, and he takes his brother to the Duke and allows him to get cleaned up, and then takes him back to his cave where he is living. And then he reveals that he was injured saving his brother and faints. And his brother revived him and bound up his wound and was sent with the bloody handkerchief as proof of what he is saying. And Ganymede faints. And Oliver picks him up. And in picking up, Ganymede realizes, you're not a boy. You're not a boy, because because no matter what the outward experience is, he's a man. He knows the difference between a man's body and a woman's body under their clothes. So he's like, this is interesting. Well, Ganymede has been listening to his story, all breathless concern. Celia and Oliver have been making eyes at each other. And Celia invites him back to their house, and they go, and Celia and Oliver fall in love. Oliver then returns to his brother, and his brother is like, wow, how did you fall in love so fast with Alina? And he is I just did. I'm going to live forever in the forest, and you can have all my property. I don't care. I love her. I will live this forest life with her. So they're very reconciled. Ganymede returns, still insisting on being Ganymede, and Orlando decides, I can't do any more play acting. I can't do any more play acting. I must have my Rosalind. And Ganymede promises to produce her at his brother's, in time for his brother's wedding, so that they can be married, which is the next day. Phoebe and Silvius, the shepherd and shepherdess, also meet, and Ganymede promises, I will marry you if I could marry you, but if I cannot marry you, knowing that she's going to turn up in girls' clothes, you must promise to marry him. And if he will have you, would you have her? Absolutely, I will have her. And so this gets all sorted out. She sorts it all out so that Orlando can marry Rosaline, and Silvius can marry Phoebe, and Phoebe will stop chasing after Ganymede. So, the next day, the wedding is planned for Oliver and Celia. And Silvius and Phoebe are there, and Orlando is there, and Touchstone and Audrey are there, sort of, can we get married too? So, yes, we're going to get married too. And Touchstone, as they're waiting for Rosalind to appear, tells the 7 degrees of a lie, which is usually missed. But the 7 degrees of a lie, if done well, is actually very funny. It's usually cut because it's very hard to do. But when you can see it, the 7 degrees of a lie is actually funny. So having done that, his little star turn is 7 degrees of a lie, Hymen appears. Now, Hymen is sort of like, he's not really a god. I mean, he is, but he's more of a poetical, he's not really a god. He's not one of my siblings or cousins. The goddess of marriage is Auntie Hera. So technically Auntie Hera should turn up because Auntie Hera is the goddess of marriage with the adulterous husband. Yes, I know. That's why she's so pissy all the time. But Hymen is, he gets called a god, but he's not really a god. He's not one of us. He's not an Olympian. And if you're not an Olympian, you're nothing. What's the point of not being an Olympian? He's more of a poetic device that the Greeks and the Romans developed later because, frankly, invoking Auntie Hera, nobody wants to invoke Auntie Hera. She's mean. She's not the goddess of marriage in a nice, cute, lovely. She's the goddess of marriage with a rolling pin. That's what Auntie Hera is. She's a goddess of marriage after you've been married for 40 years and she's nagging the crap out of you. That's what she is. So they had to invent this other little god called Hymen to preside over weddings. I don't know that Auntie Hera's very happy about that. Anyway, he turns up bringing Rosalind. And so everybody is married to the right people. And it all looks like greatly happy. And then a messenger from the court comes saying the Duke has heard of so many people just exiting the court and coming to the forest that he is come to kill his brother. And everyone is like, ah! But on the way to the forest, he met an old religious man, was converted from his attitude and has relinquished his crown back to his brother. Now, given that this is a nice little place to stop and to give something, to get a copy of this book, come across to the Black Cockie Press Instagram and DM Her Infernal Majesty sent me. So I'm Her Infernal Majesty. You are me. Her Infernal Majesty sent me. The first 3 messages I get will get a free book signed. Now, the marriages are able to happen. The Duke is restored to his crown. Everybody is back to where they should be, and they then are able to leave the forest. So that one, in spite of the fact that honestly I have not seen it done well, it is a very pretty little play. It doesn't have a lot of plot, as you can see. It's more about a lot of the wordplay and the talky talk between all the characters, which is very fast and very, very witty and very complex. And so it is very interesting, but it's very hard to pull off. So anyway, that is what we have done for today. That's all I have for you today. And I will see you again later. I think I might bring you another history play. So, until we meet again, bye-bye.
If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other materials to help with your writing.